Volume 18 is another hefty one, but it's made up of a number of small articles that address an array of issues. As the situation in Russia and abroad gets more intense, Lenin responded to more and wrote fluently and succinctly about what was going on around him. This is on the eve of World War One. That means that there's a number of fruitful articles here, but it also means that I can't possibly cover every one of them in just a few minutes that I want to keep these videos to. So, what I've done is I've divided them into themes and chosen the articles that I thought were the most important and interesting. In particular, I'm going to focus on a few things. One, the internal party politics, domestic politics in Russia, and three, international politics. And I'll end the video with the theoretical contributions that are contained within this volume. As far as Lenin was concerned, by 1912 and after the Sixth Party Congress, the liquidationists, if you remember, go back previous episodes, were defeated. What concerned the Bolshevik leader in 1912 was not so much whether liquidationists would destroy the party, but whether the party could, one, continue to maintain the support, including the financial support of the German Social Democratic Party, which was the largest in Europe at the time. And to do this, he really had to create a clear presentation of the situation within the party, and he had to demonstrate its resolution. He worried that if party funds could not be continued to be distributed as normal, then it would get into the hands of factionalists who would use it to fund their own newspapers and further fracture the party. Therefore, in the article, in the present situation in the RSDLP, Lenin made the case that only, quote, Lenin's group constituted the true heart of the party, as agreed upon at the Sixth Party Congress, covered in a previous episode. The article on Bolshevism is a two-page summary of the party splits and the fractures since the early years of the party for anybody that is interested and wants a very succinct uh, conversation about that. Go to that article. Working out a clear, consistent, and unified party and message was important for Lenin at the time because of the Fourth Duma elections that were on the eve. Although he recognized that the elections were a sham, he maintained that the party needed to put forward candidates with clear election slogans and that they had to have a sharp understanding of the political parties that they were contending with, that they confronted. In the aftermath of the Lena Goldfield shootings, in which Tsarist officers shot striking workers, Lenin's text, the quote, the Fourth Duma election campaign and the tasks of the Revolutionary Social Democrats is absolutely clear that the task of the party in the elections is to avoid collaboration with liberals and to use the feud between them, between the liberals and the populists, that is the workers' Trudovnik party, to reinforce the workers' party. In other words, exploit their tension. The massacre at the Lena Goldfields reignited popular agitation and led to an upswing in strikes throughout Russia. In, quote, revolutionary upswing, Lenin recognizes that an opportune moment for agitation is emerging in which the, quote, June 3rd monarchy, as he refers to the Duma, is exposed for the false promises and commitment that it promised to workers to be more republic and democratic. Lenin states plainly that the social democrats must step in, quote, to be able to support and extend the movement of the masses, we need organization and more organization, in his characteristic repetitive quotes, for which the illegal party was just as important as the legal arm. In terms of domestic politics, Lenin published a lot of articles to clarify the difference between the liberal cadets, the Octoberists, the Social Democrats, and the Trudovniks, and the ways in which the enemies of the party freed the power or in some cases enabled the power of the Black Hundreds, that is, the monarchists. Of particular interest was the appearance on the scene of priests, who were a sort of unpredictable variable in the elections. On the one hand, the established church, the capital C church, was loyal to the Tsar and thus the Black Hundreds. But the parish priests, those local priests, were more loyal to their parish and their parishioners, most often who were peasants and workers. So the question for Lenin and for everybody in Russia at the time was, who were they going to support and how could we court the support of the church? In The Priesthood and Politics, Lenin points out that liberals in the Black Hundreds are trying to mobilize the priesthood to bolster their electorate. Liberals, on one hand, pretend like priests shouldn't interfere in politics. That's their position, the separation of church and state. When in fact, they always play an indirect role in influencing their flock. In that case, Lenin says the more overt they participate, the better. We can't pretend like priests aren't involved in politics in some way. There's a few articles here where Lenin again defends the illegal and the legal party work as interdependent components of the party organization. When the election results came in, Lenin provided his analysis. Obviously, everybody knew that the elections were manipulated. The nationalists and the rightists, the Black Hundreds, won a majority, but the liberal parties, that is, the cadets, the Octoberists, the progressivists, constituted a second bloc who together made a majority, actually. Lenin said that what this signaled was the liberal willingness to work with nationalist parties at the expense of social democrats and the Trudovniks, the Workers' Party, the Populist Workers' Party. He also points out that liberals seem to be trying to create an American style two-party system facade, which seemed to have really fascinated Lenin at this point. And as he discussed in the two articles in this volume, and one, the American elections, as the prime example of liberal deceptive politics. In that sense, there are a lot of articles in this volume addressing international situations, and some of you have expressed interest in these international conversations, particularly concerning the American elections. In, quote, The Success of the American Workers, Lenin points out that the labor movement in the United States at this time is clearly on the rise. But in another article concerning the importance of the US election, Lenin argues that American liberals have tactfully created the facade of a two-party system, of a two-party split, in order to split the working class vote, saying that, quote, this so-called bipartisan system prevailing in America and Britain has been one of the most powerful means of uh, presenting preventing the rise of an independent working class, i.e., genuinely socialist party. Is that something that maybe we argue today too? But on the eve of World War One, the Balkans, Italy, and the Middle East were on fire due to the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman power. In, quote, The Balkan Peoples in European Diplomacy, and other articles concerning the literal scheming over the carving out of the Balkans and the plundering of its resources and people. The Balkan question loomed large while the people of Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria vied for self determination. The backward empires of Russia and Austria wanted to prevent the true independence of these people. Socialists and imperialists alike watched on with very limited access to information as the Ottomans tried but failed ultimately to retain their European empire. This volume also contains a number of interesting articles that address theoretical topics within the framework of current events for Lenin. For example, in, quote, Capitalism and Parliament, Lenin argues that, quote, In capitalist countries, representative institutions inevitably give rise to specific forms in which capital exercises its influence on state power. Again, I think related to today a little bit. Again, in quote, capitalism and popular consumption, Lenin applies his Marxist political economy to argue, using the case of cheap butter in the Netherlands, or margarine as it's called, that the diet of people deteriorates as capitalism develops. Danish, I'm sorry, I said Netherlands, I meant Danish. Danish peasants, for instance, produce high quality butter, but they can't afford the butter that they make. And so they're thus forced to sell it on the international market. And they themselves have to buy this cheap, unhealthy margarine. Finally, in The Historical Destiny of the Doctrine of Karl Marx, Lenin follows the historical development of Marxism from 1844 to 1904 and details all the opportunist variations and the different currents along the way, along his analysis. So, if you're interested again in a short opinion of Lenin's opinion of Marxism at this time, look up that one. Of notable mention in this volume are two articles covering the Chinese Revolution of 1911 and China's battle for national self determination, a discussion of socialism in Poland, in Italy, in Britain, two letters that Lenin wrote to Stalin asking him to help publish some agitational literature material, and a rather weak comparison of Russian serfs and African slaves. Eesh, that wasn't a good one. But I appreciated the effort. So, thanks for listening. Until next time, until season, episode volume 19. Peace out.